Hello again, and welcome back to Story Time with Nana, Lynn, and Glow. We've been working on Another's Treasure, Mysteries of Lancaster County by Nancy Mell, and we left off on chapter 11. So let's try to get some more chapters in and see what is going on. So tell me about your shop, Officer Marks said as he sat down at the kitchen table. After offering him a cup of coffee, which he accepted, Elizabeth briefly told him the history of secondhand blessings. So your sisters left everything to come here and run the shop with you, he asked. Wow, this place must mean a lot to you. Elizabeth brought his coffee to the table. Cream or sugar, she asked. He shook his head. I like it black. Some of these flavored coffees aren't really coffee in my book. Elizabeth laughed. I feel the same way. Every so often, though, I like to indulge in a latte, but when I do, I feel like I'm having dessert, not coffee. Officer Marks took a sip of coffee. This is delicious. Elizabeth smiled at his compliment. Before she realized what she was doing, her gaze flicked to the ring finger on his left hand. No ring. What information do you need for your report? She brought her mind back to the reason he was here. Officer Marks blinked a few times and put his cup down. Oh, sorry, I guess we should get on with it. Elizabeth wanted to take her words back. He was being nice, and here she was rushing him, making him feel uncomfortable. He took a notepad and pen out of his pocket. So, did you hear anything around the time of the break-in? Elizabeth sat down. Yes, like a loud bang. Now that I think about it, that doesn't make sense. Wouldn't we have heard the window break when the intruder hit it? Not necessarily. Breaking glass isn't that loud, especially when you're inside with the doors and windows shut. I wonder if it was the sound of the big table falling over, Elizabeth said. Well, that's a good thought. My guess is the intruder knocked the table over on his way out. Point of entry was the window, but his exit was probably through the front entrance. Elizabeth sighed. Of course, I remember now that the front door wasn't locked. He must have left that way and closed the door behind him. You're sure you locked it earlier? We must have. We're very careful about that. I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm sorry I forgot. I guess I was just shaken by what happened. It's understandable. He picked up his coffee cup and drained it. Please have another cup, Elizabeth said, rising from the table. She picked up the coffee pot from the counter and brought it back. That would be great, thanks. I have a long night ahead of me. She poured the coffee, put the pot back, and got a loaf of pumpkin bread from the pantry. She unwrapped it, sliced it, put it on a plate, and brought it to the table along with 2 plates and 2 forks. Please, have some of my sister Martha's pumpkin bread. It goes great with my coffee. Although Officer Marks seemed to hesitate for only a moment, he finally smiled and thanked her. Elizabeth put a slice on his plate and one on hers, and then handed him a fork. I put a little cinnamon in my coffee, she said. That's why it goes so great with this bread. His eyes widened. That's it! Cinnamon! I've been trying to figure out what makes this taste so good. How did you ever think of that? Elizabeth chuckled. I can't take credit for it. Quite a few people use cinnamon. Well, it's the first time I've tried it. It's amazing. He gazed around the kitchen. This is such a cozy room. My apartment has a modern kitchen. It's cold and impersonal. Well, except for a new floor I put in after my mother died and a new sink, the kitchen is just about as she left it. My father made this table and the cabinets. Well, it's a wonderful room, he said. I'll bet y'all spend a lot of time in here. You'd be right, she said. Frankly, unless we're watching television, we always gather in the kitchen. We even work on our business records here. The policeman took a bite of the pumpkin bread and shook his head slowly. Incredible. You should sell this. Elizabeth smiled. We do. Martha bakes several different things and offers them in the store. Well, I'm sure it sells well. Yes, it does. So, Officer Marks, what will happen next? I'll file this report, and then we'll do whatever we can. Unfortunately, we don't have much to go on. He frowned at her. Have there been any suspicious people in your store? Elizabeth almost laughed out loud. Might be easier to tell you who wasn't suspicious. Actually, things have been a little weird since we opened. 3 days. Wow. And you've already attracted this much attention. That seems a little unusual. Do you have any idea who did this? Is there some reason that you're a target? Elizabeth made the decision to tell the truth. At this point, A little protection from the police might not be such a bad idea. She launched into the entire story about the Smucker estate, Anita's reaction, their quest to find the articles that had been sold, and the strange woman looking for the missing painting. Frankly, I would suspect her first. She seems to think we're hiding this picture and she wants it. Mary told her we didn't have it, but the woman didn't seem to believe her. You haven't seen her yourself? No, you should probably talk to Mary about her. Talk to me about what? Elizabeth hadn't heard Mary come in. She turned around to see her sister walking into the kitchen. Officer Marks needs a description of the woman who was looking for that painting. Sure, what can I tell you, Officer Marks? Just run through your interaction with this woman, and if you could give me a description, that would be great. Did you see her car? Mary recounted her contact with the woman. Is there anything else you can think to tell me? He asked. Well, there were footprints, Elizabeth said. We showed them to the other officer, Mary said. She took pictures. Oh, Elizabeth said, I almost forgot. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the small piece of fabric that they'd found. Our dog had this in his mouth. He brought it to us when we went outside. It doesn't belong to us, and we don't have any used clothing it matches. John took the piece of cloth and put it in a baggie that he had in his pocket. He stood up. Thank you for your help, he said, and the hospitality. He directed his last comment to Elizabeth, who smiled and nodded. I'll keep you up to date on our investigation. He looked at his notes and read back the telephone number Elizabeth had given him. Is this the correct number? Yes, Mary said. There's a different number for the shop. I'm sorry, Elizabeth said. I forgot to give you that one. She recited it slowly, and he wrote it down. Well, I guess that's it for now, he said. Thank you. He walked out to the porch and joined his partner. After talking to Martha for a couple of minutes, the police officers got into their car and drove away. And that is chapter 11. So we'll stop there, and I'll see you in the next video with chapter 12.